Hello and welcome to our Third Wall training session. Thank you for selecting Third Wall. You're going to find it a great product, and today's system or today's session is designed to really help you understand how to use Third Wall and what it can do for you in some level of detail. This goes beyond what you might have seen in a webinar, or if you've not ever seen Third Wall, this will give you a good background of how to use it and what you're able to do with it. Several things we'll cover in the session today. We'll talk first about our support documentation and website resources, and we'll go back through that periodically throughout the session. We'll talk about basic use, including on-off, screen navigation, things like that. We'll do a review of all of our policies and focus on the nuances that you may not understand from a first glance, especially important with some of our more advanced policies. We'll talk about what you can do on an individual computer screen, lots of features there. We'll talk about using profiles and how you can use those to make your deployment of Third Wall much easier across large numbers of computers. Throughout, we'll talk about reports and data views and how they relate to our policies and other protections. We'll talk about global settings, of which there are quite a few. We'll talk about tickets, and we'll talk about permissions. So lots to talk about today and get you very, very familiar and comfortable using Third Wall. First, though, let me start with our support and documentation. And for that, I'm going to go to our website. So if I bring up our website, I'm going to go straight to our resources tab. Now this is third-wall.com. There's a dash in the middle. So go to the resources tab. And a couple things I want to show you. First off is our instructions document. So if I go to the instructions here, please download our operational instructions. These are very important and will help you a great deal with your understanding of Third Wall. Lots of detail, good supporting documentation. Also on our website, if you go to the contact page, you will see there is a technical support. This is where you can put in your technical questions. Go straight to our ticketing board, and we'll get back to you pretty quickly. So a couple of quick things there to show you as we get started. There are more website resources we'll come back to. So let's switch gears and talk directly about Third Wall. We're going to start with the basic use on-off and screen navigation. So let me move to a screen hopefully you're all familiar with, a ConnectWise Automate screen. Now Third Wall, as of now, when I'm recording this, is a plugin for ConnectWise Automate only. So this is an Automate control center. Should look pretty familiar to you. And we'll go through this a number of different things. You'll find Third Wall is fully integrated and into Automate. We've got screens in every client screen, in every location screen, except for location 1, interestingly, in every computer screen, and in global settings, we put it in the integration screen on the dashboard. So there are a lot of different places that you're going to see Third Wall in our training session today. And hopefully you'll get comfortable with using them all. I'm going to start, though, with the location screen, and that's where we apply our policies. And kind of the flow today to start with is we're going to review some basics of on-off, which happens at the location screen with our policies. So we'll talk a lot about our policies, then we'll go through them and show you what they do. And from there, we'll shift to some other screens, including computer integration screens, things like that. But we're going to start off with our policies. And this is our demo environment. So you can see we've got a number of different clients in Automate. I'm going to focus in on this one client called Bob's Burger Shack. So I'm going to expand it out. And you'll see we have a location called Virtual Machines. I'm going to double click to open that. And we'll wait for Automate to catch up. And here it comes. It's typical Automate location screen, our location number 10, as you can see. And look, there is a Third Wall tab. So let me go in here and select the Third Wall tab, and you will see a screen that we call our security overview. That's this first screen we'll look at today. This shows you at a glance all 62 of our policies and their current state on the computers in this location. And only the computers in this location. You can see we've got it all color-coded for you with our legend on the bottom. Yellow means the policy is not active, hasn't been turned on yet, which is most of these. Green means the policy is turned on. We've got a couple of those that are turned on already. And there are 4 more colors that we'll see during the course of the session today. There are black lines. These are not policies. These are titles of subsections. You'll notice that they correspond precisely with the subtabs over on the left, which is where we're going to do our work. We really don't do any work on this page until we get down to profiles in the bottom right, but it helps you to see status and to navigate. So for instance, if I want to disallow Microsoft accounts to start off with, you can see that's in the local built-in account management subtab, and I will go there, and sure enough, there is disallow Microsoft accounts. So here's how the ease of use comes into play. You want to disallow Microsoft accounts and start protecting these computers some more? Simple. Just come here, click the slider switch. And actually, this one's a little different. Most of our policies don't have this, but I start here because I want to show you that some of our policies have a pop-up. This is a little warning saying, hey, if you disallow Microsoft accounts, if you enable this policy, you will remove all Microsoft accounts profiles resident on all computers within this location. So they're going to be gone. If you don't want to do that, please don't use this policy. That also, by the way, by default, will block Azure AD logons because they're bound to Microsoft accounts. So you may not be able to use this policy everywhere. Anywhere you want to use Azure AD logons, you can't use this policy. But that's really the point of ThirdWall, is to customize. We make it easy to turn on the policies, turn on the protections that work for you, for your environment, and ignore the others. Customization is so easy when you've got an interface as easy to use as ThirdWall. I can go ahead and use this, so I'm going to click yes, and we will now, I'm going to hit the save button on the bottom right. You can see it's turned green, and we'll turn on this policy. This is now going out there, and the mechanism we use for that are automate commands. We don't use scripts at all. We use automate commands, very robust, very capable. They're going to go out there, and we're going to send a command down to every single computer through the automate agent, down to our agent, certified remote agent plugin for automate. Our agent is going to do all the work. In this case, it's going to do a direct write to the registry. We do not use group policy in any form or fashion, or local policy, no GPO, nothing like that. They're not adequate for the task of protecting you in the cybersecurity world. So we're going to do a direct write, in this case, to the registry to prevent users from logging on to Windows 10 computers with their Microsoft accounts, the ones that Microsoft pushes all the time, which you could do with any of those accounts, with any of those credentials, on any Windows 10 computer you wanted to, unless specifically prohibited. And we just did that. We just specifically prohibited people from logging on to these computers using Microsoft accounts, which, by the way, includes Hotmail and Windows Live, but not Office 365. Office 365 is not blocked. So, nice way to start. We've got that going. You'll notice that a couple of fields have shown up over here. The date that it was turned on is there, and that'll be used in a report later, you'll see. And this undo link has shown up. This, as you'll see soon, is the primary way for removing this policy if you don't want it any longer. We'll come back to that. If I go to back to the overview, you'll see this has turned green as expected, and that date that we turned it on has also shown up. So that is, again, valuable information at a glance. The other thing we do when we turn on a ThirdWall policy is we initiate an automate remote computer monitor. Standard automate monitor, very lightweight, and it's going to check the setting, in this case the registry value you put in place every 5 minutes. Not every few hours like group policy, but every 5 minutes. This is cybersecurity. We want to find out if that value has been changed much sooner than a few hours. So again, every 5 minutes. If we find it's in the right setting, the correct setting, great. Check it again 5 minutes later. If not, if it's in the wrong setting, we're going to do two things. Like group policy, we're going to auto-fix that setting. So your vulnerability, though, is going to be fixed within 5 minutes. And second, we're going to send you a ticket in Automate. So let's go take a look at the ticket board in Automate. I'm going to go to the service desk and go to tickets. These are standard Automate tickets, which means you can map them through directly into your ConnectWise Manage if you so desire. And there's a bunch of them here. Let's take a look, and up there. You see this one starts with TW, as do the couple of them right there in a row. TW, of course, ThirdWall in the ticket subject line. That's how you identify our tickets, okay? And we're going to send you a ticket whenever we have to auto-fix something. But that raises the question, why? Since we've auto-fixed it, isn't it corrected? Yes. but somebody or something just changed a cybersecurity setting on you. We figure you'd want to know about that, so you can then go investigate, look into it, and figure out, oh, geez, what just happened here, and I need to take further protective action. So this allows you to be much more proactive in applying protection to your environment. Tickets are very important to what we do and keeping you in the loop. That being said, 5 minutes after we have issued that ticket, we're going to check that setting again with our monitor. And if it's still in the corrected state, we're going to automatically resolve that ticket. So you might see a bunch of resolved third-wall tickets. We do that so we're not this open ticket spam machine. But even if it's resolved, we strongly recommend that you go ahead and investigate and find out what or who changed that setting and if you need to take further actions. We'll come back to tickets later. There are a number of different uses for tickets. But for now, let me go back to here and this page. So that's turning a policy on. Let's reverse course and turn a policy off. There are actually 3 different ways to do that, so a little bit more complexity, but you'll see why. One thing you can do is to go back to the slider switch and just click that. But if I do that and read carefully, when saved, this policy's monitor will be turned off, but those underlying restricting values will not be changed. Therefore, the computers stay restricted. Not recommended unless that's what you want to do, so consider an undo instead. But we do allow this in case you want to do that. I'm going to click Save and wait for it. It's now been issued. And over here, you'll see this is turned orange. Orange, according to our legend, means applied and removed, but not undone. So it's a bit of a warning color. Hey, you turned it on, got the restrictions, got the monitor, but just turned off the monitor and nothing else. So the restrictions still remain. Are you sure you want to do that? And that's really the reason for the orange color. It's a little bit of a warning color in case you didn't want to do that. Just a couple of thoughts on that. When you remove the monitor, if you add new computers to a location, the monitor won't be there to pick that up. That's how we pick up new computers and protect them, is through our monitors. So that's not going to happen with any new computers you put into this location. And of course, if anybody or anything changes the settings, we're not going to catch that either and issue you a ticket or auto-fix it. So we don't necessarily recommend people do that unless that's exactly what you're looking for. So I'm going to go back here and I'm now going to undo. Now I can turn the policy back on, or I can go straight to undo, which is the more thorough way for removing this policy. So I'm going to go ahead and click undo. And for most, but not all of my policies, I get 2 choices. I can undo it completely, or I can create a temporary exception. So let's go ahead and undo it completely. I'm going to click Save here. We're now issuing an undo command, which is going to remove both the monitor and the restrictive settings. And you can see this is now turned back to yellow. No third wall policy turned on there. Okay, so that's one way to do it. Let me turn the policy back on. I'm going to go through this warning again and click Yes and click Save. And now I'm going to use the other option, which is this undo link again and a temporary exception. So if I click on this, this is exactly the same as a full undo. I'm going to get rid of both the monitor and the restrictive settings, but I'm also going to start a timer. Timer defaults to 5 minutes, and I can control that with this slider. Move this up. You can see it's now at 60 minutes. I'm going to click Save here. This is going to issue an undo, get rid of both the monitor and the settings, and start the timer. Okay, so we've started this temporary, we've suspended this policy, and it was going to last for 60 minutes. That's exactly what I selected. Go back here to the overview. You can see this is now turned pink. Pink means a temporary undo is active. And we know, because I selected an hour, that in an hour this policy is going to turn back on. And the protections will be there. That is interesting, right? So why do we have this feature? Because as you'll soon see, ThirdWall is very powerful at helping you lock down your environment in ways that you're going to want to do. But at some point, it's likely that ThirdWall will interfere with something you as administrators want to do. And you're going to say, oh, geez, ThirdWall, I need to do something. How do I get around this restriction? Oh yeah, temporary undo. Go in there, select that, do a temporary undo, and we'll remove the restrictions in the monitor for up to an hour, create a window for you to do what you need to do. After you're finished, if you forget to turn the protection back on by removing the temporary undo, don't worry about it. We'll take care of it for you at the end of your selected time, and turn the protections and the policies back on. You won't have to worry about forgetting, which of course could certainly happen. It happens a lot when you get distracted. So that's a popular feature. Now I don't have to wait for an hour. I've fixed my my system, whatever I needed to do. I can come back to the undo link, and I now have an option to remove the temporary suspension. So I'm going to do that. Click Save, and we'll turn this policy back on. Wait for it. There it goes. And if I go back to the overview page, you'll see this is back to green and is protecting these computers again. So that's how simple it is to do the basics of on and off. Again, we wanted to make it very easy so you could customize as you see fit. So now let's change gears and talk instead about our policies that are here on the location. Okay, we have 62 of them. There's lots to go through here, and this will take a little while, but I want to make sure that you have a pretty good understanding of what these policies do and how to use them. So we're going to start by going into, on the tabs on the left, this is where we're going to go do our work. We're going to go to the local built-in account management again. This is where we started before with disallow Microsoft accounts. Let's take a look at all the policies on this page. There are several of them, and the first 4 of them are all about protecting the built-in local administrator account. Now this is one that's native to every single Windows computer. They all have it, and they're vulnerable. Why? Because every single hacker in the world knows that they're there, knows that they have elevated privileges, and they want to get in and hack it and start doing some damage. Thus you want to protect it. And just by coincidence, they all happen to know the default name of the built-in local administrator account, which is, of course, administrator. So let's change the name of that. I like to name it Bob. We've now made the hacker's job that much harder. While we're at it, let's go ahead and set the local administrator password. And I'm going to do something really exciting like Bobby1. Okay, so we've now, once I hit save, we will have applied these across every computer in this entire location. A couple of nuances before I go any further. Notice that there are some checkboxes here. You can auto enable administrator account if disabled. Notice how these two are linked, both of them checked at the same time. What this does is it prevents a situation where you want to go make a change to the built-in local administrator account with these policies, but the local administrator account is disabled. Therefore, you can't. That will generate a ticket from ThirdWall saying, hey, tried, but failed to apply this policy. So you would get a ticket. If you want to avoid the ticket and make this policy work, go ahead and check this checkbox if you think the local administrator, the built-in local administrator account is already disabled. You can also hide the administrator account from the logon screen if you so desire. So there's some nice little options. Also notice when I cursor away from the password, it disappears. That helps you with compliance. Our policies help you not only with protection, but with compliance. And that's one of the things that's required by various compliance regulations is to hide the password. So we've done that. Now that being said, we are not experts in compliance regulations. There's a lot of them around the world, and we have clients all around the world. But our clients do know what they need for compliance, and they tell us all the time, hey, add this, change this. So we will continue to enhance ThirdWall to help you with compliance. Also notice there is an asterisk at the end of each of these policies. That asterisk means that these policies will only apply to Windows workstations and not to Windows servers. And I probably forgot to mention ThirdWall only works on Windows computers, not on Macs or Unix, okay? But anything with an asterisk, if you think about it as common sense, they don't apply to servers. And we have a few of these scattered around throughout our policies as you'll see them today. Notice also these two are grayed out. There are some mutual exclusivities between these and these, so we don't allow you to use these when something is colliding with it and you can't use both. So since I haven't hit the save button, it's still green down there. I don't have to undo these. I can simply deselect, and these are now available to me. So this one, ThirdWall Administrator Password System, what we affectionately call TWAPS, is an alternate to this one. So remember on this one we typed in a password and it applied to every computer's built-in local admin account across the entire location. This is more secure if you choose it. It is going to it's going to create a random password for every single computer for their built-in local admin account. They'll all be different. It'll be complex by definition. It will be of this length that you select and of this lifespan that you've selected. And at the end of that life, it will then automatically change. And you can have a rotating password for your built-in local admin account. Very, very slick. This mimics a lot of what Microsoft Laps does. We just make it very, very simple for you. So highly recommend the very popular policy with our clients. Some of our clients buy ThirdWall just for this one policy. And last, you could also simply disable the local administrator account. It's grayed out because I have something else turned on. If you choose to do that, that's fine. Again, all of these only impact the built-in local administrator account, not a secondary one that you might have created. There is a guest account, an ability to disable a guest account, which we recommend. That is a vulnerability, but why? Since the guest account is disabled by default in Windows, because somebody or something might turn it on, and that will create a vulnerability again. We will catch it within 5 minutes with our monitor. We will auto-fix it. We'll send you a ticket, and we'll include it in a report that we are protecting, doing all those protections. And that report you can hand to your auditors, to your management team, to your clients to prove that you are ahead of the curve in protecting your environment. And we talked about disallow Microsoft accounts. So that's page 1. Now, a quick question on this page. If you were to turn the policies on this page, do you think your end users would even notice that they're turned on, as long as they're not Azure AD users, which this one impacted as we saw earlier? And the general answers our clients give is no, they won't. And that creates what we call a no-brainer situation. You can turn policies on that provide valuable protection, valuable compliance, but your end users aren't going to really notice it in their day-to-day activities and aren't going to call you up and yell at you for disabling systems or whatever that they want to use. So we call those no-brainers. Great protection, great compliance, nobody yelling at you. Pretty good combination. We have actually mapped out on our website. So I'm going to go back to our website. I'm going to go back to the resources tab where I was earlier, and I'm going to go down to the onboard your clients section. And here is a policy matrix. If I click on this we've got mapped out. Are you going to get any pushback from your end users or not? If not, we call them no-brainers. Why not, right? And we have a whole bunch of them here on the bottom half of this matrix that we consider to be good candidates for no-brainers. And you can go through them and decide if your environment, if you agree, but these are all good candidates in our minds. But up here on the top, you better ask first, coordinate first, announce first, because these will create some pushback from people. And so you better ask first. For those of you who are MSPs watching this, we keep up with the second axis. What's the benefit to you as a service provider? Now, all of our policies prevent issues and better protection, better compliance. All of them do one or both of those. So, but some of our policies do that, but don't really help you with additional revenue. And we put them all in this column. They aren't going to resonate well with your clients. Your clients aren't going to pay you to disable auto run, for instance. But you might bundle them or something like that if you're interested in revenue from that perspective. But over on the right-hand side, we've chosen some that our clients have found to be quite valuable at generating extra revenue, including the most popular one, the user logon report, followed closely by USB Watch, and the ever important monitor for ransomware attacks. So there are a bunch of them there that may allow you to get additional revenue if you are in the marketing and sales side in your company on an MSP. All right, so there's enough of that. Let's go back to the control center and back to here. So that's page 1. Let's progress on to page 2. Page 2 is local user account management and a number of new policies here. So the first 3 are all about protecting local accounts, just local, not domain, by managing password, length, age, and complexity. Pretty straightforward. You may be doing this already with group policy. We just do it better because we monitor more frequently, we send tickets, we allow exceptions, as you'll see. There are all sorts of different reasons to use ThirdWall instead of group policy. So the next one down, password protected screensaver. I've already got this one turned on. And I've got it set for 30 minutes of inactivity, of idle time. At the end of that, password will be required to resume. Okay, so pretty straightforward. We can change that from 30 minutes up to a couple of hours using the slider, or back down to 5 minutes. And I'm going to leave it at 5 minutes. We'll come back to that later and you'll see why. If you are like most of our clients, you give some or perhaps even all of your end users local admin privileges. to give them things like printer discovery and installation, things like that. It makes everybody's life a little easier. Put them in the local admin group, and that's good. But when you do that, you not only give them access to good tools, you give them access to very, very dangerous tools, which are particularly dangerous if you have a malicious end user, or worse yet, a hacker who's taken over an end user and is ready to do some damage. So you want to take away those dangerous tools, click here. And we will take away anything that's checked on this list. So you can have no more access to registry editor, or no more run as admin, no more PowerShell. Maybe you want them to have control panel and task manager. Go ahead and uncheck to customize what will work for you in your environment. So again, just take away what you want. This policy is probably our most impactful lockdown policy. It does a lot of lockdown, which also, by the way, affects you as administrators. So how do you get around these restrictions? A couple different ways. First and foremost, use any of these tools directly from Automate or an Automate script. Automate runs as the local systems administrator and has superpowers, and therefore simply ignores these restrictions. Okay, or you can use that temporary undo that I pointed out earlier and showed you how to use. That has a bit of a caveat though, particularly with PowerShell and run as admin. If you want to get those back by doing a temporary undo or an undo, you will have to either reboot the target computers or have them sign out, sign back in to regain that functionality. It's just a Windows thing. We cannot do anything about it, but there is that nuance there. Or finally, you could click here and exempt the built-in local administrator and the built-in domain administrator from being restricted with these particular restrictions. It will ignore that. So you've got some different ways to get past this. Now, I'm going to tell you, please read about this in our documentation. There are some more nuances that are going to take more time to describe than I've got today. Please read about them. We've got a great KB link in our documentation that will tell you a lot more about this particular policy. All right, next one down. Windows has a thing called UAC, User Access Controls. You're all familiar with that, I'm sure, and this has a best practice of setting it at level 3 or above. But we have found, a lot of our clients have found that that doesn't always work. You may have to set it to level 1, for instance, so it doesn't interfere with certain ERP systems. So you've got, again, the ability to customize for whatever works for your environment or your client's environments. Down below that, a couple of interesting ones. You know how end users love to install their own software. Now, that's not just an annoyance anymore. It's a real vulnerability. Are they keeping it patched? Yeah, sure. Good luck with that. Is Log4j buried in it somewhere or something similar? Yeah, who knows? There's a lot of danger in people installing their own software. So let's put some big roadblocks up. These two here. This one will stop anybody from launching any variant of setup or install executable. Those asterisks inside are wildcards. So any variant of those will be blocked. Okay, so how do you get around that? Again, a couple different ways. One is by running these directly from Automate or an Automate script. Local systems admin doesn't get blocked by these. Second, you can use that temporary undo. Again, this would require a reboot or sign out, sign in order to regain the functionality. So not ideal, but you can use that. Or you can simply change the spelling of the word setup or install. Yep, these are word matches. The asterisk should have given that away. So just change a letter in those two words and we won't match it anymore, and you can go ahead and successfully run that program if you'd like. Okay, so there's some different ways for you to get around it. MSI files, same concept, but we give you some radio buttons. You can disable all MSI files or just unmanaged ones, which is really by definition non-elevated users. So anybody who's a non-elevated user, not an admin, will not be able to run them, but admins will. So you've got a choice for how you want to set this up to, again, minimize what end users can do and help you to manage your environment. So lots of different options on page 2. Let's go on to page 3. This one is all about OS security. So we'll start with a simple one, disable Windows 10 keylogger. You may not realize that Microsoft Windows is set to capture every keystroke that they possibly can and take it back to some big privacy invading database in the sky, right? If you want to protect privacy, click here. But there's another pop-up engineered by Microsoft. If you disable their privacy intruder, they will turn off Microsoft Cloud services, including Intune and Azure services. So you may not be able to use this one. Much as we'd like to get around that one, we haven't found a way, so you might not be able to use this policy in all your locations. We can, so I'm going to click yes and press on. Enable logon message. This one's a really popular one, especially with our managed service providers. Every time somebody logs on, they will see a couple of messages. Protected by, oh me. You can put your company's name there, your brand, which is particularly important for our MSP clients. Branding is really good stuff, right? At the same time, you can put a disclaimer for HIPAA, PCI, or other compliance regulations. You can Google what's required and just put it in here. We will put it on every computer whenever they log in. And you can put a special notice. Hey, everybody, leave your computers on tonight, and you can change it about as easily as I just did. So this is a pretty popular policy. Simple, but very, very effective. Smart Screen is a standard Windows feature that helps prevent people from doing stupid stuff with Microsoft browsers, Edge and Microsoft Explorer, for those who are still running that. This is a true no-brainer. You might as well do this. Keep people from doing stupid stuff. Why not? UPnP and Autorun, you know what those are. So that's pretty important protection. You can disable them if you choose. Again, we just make it simple. For Autorun, we just prevent the pop-up from coming up, showing them what's on that drive that they just plugged in or whatever, right? So it's pretty simple but highly effective. And then we get to one of our biggest policies: disable EXEs running from the app data folder up to 9 layers deep. Why? To protect against ransomware attacks. Most, I won't say all, but almost all ransomware to this day still gets into your system, buries itself in the app data folder somewhere as an executable, and launches when it's ready, often in a coordinated attack. This will stop that cold. It's not going to be able to launch. Boom, you just stopped a whole bunch of ransomware. But in the back of your brain, you're thinking, yeah, Scott, but why? Isn't this something that has legitimate programs launching out of there? Yes, it does. So, and therefore there's lots of nuances to this, lots of layers. Let's take a deeper look. This symbology you'll recognize as app data roaming, but you can also block applications launching from local app data. Again, up to 9 layers deep. You can have us send you an automate ticket. Every time we block something, it will show you both the pathway and the file name of what we blocked. Very important, because that's going to be one of two things. Either A, you just blocked ransomware and you're a hero, make sure the appropriate people know, or B, I didn't want to block that, I need to add it to my whitelist. Yeah, whitelists are a very big piece of this, and we'll see our whitelist mechanisms here in a minute. And last but not least, you can block all executable types. EXEs are one type. There are 30 more file types that are classified as executables, and this will block all of them. These are listed in our documentation. Please do your homework before you click this particular option, because you're going to block a lot of things. Things like LNK, quick launch icons on the bottom of the screen, are executables. So you can block those if you want to, or you can whitelist those. So before you do this, make sure you've done your homework and whitelisted as much as you need to, okay? In fact, I'll go one step further. Do not turn this policy on until after you have whitelisted what you want, even for EXE policies only, okay? Because there are legitimate things and you want to make sure that they run. So let's go take a look at how you whitelist within ThirdWall. There are actually two different ways. One is at the global level, so I'm going to go to System, Configuration, and open up the dashboard. Here comes the standard Automate dashboard. Wait for it to load. And we're going to go to the Config, and then Integration Screen, all standard so far, and look, there's a ThirdWall tab. So here is the second of the 4 screens I was telling you about, ThirdWall on the Integration Screen for global settings. Click there. And this is our integration screen. Now, first things first, notice it says that all edit controls are enabled. This isn't going to be true for everybody. Only people who are ThirdWall admins in Automate permissions are allowed to use third wall global settings. That's it. You have to be a third wall admin. Even if you're a super admin, you cannot use this page unless you make yourself a third wall admin, because there are things in third wall that people who aren't familiar with it should probably not be doing. So if you don't know how to do that, please contact us and we will walk you through how to become a third wall admin in standard Automate permissions. There are 8 different pages here. We're going to go through all of them, most of them later, but for now I'm going to go to Global EXE Block Exceptions, and this brings up a pop-up that says, hey, here is your app data exceptions. There's nothing in the list so far. I can add one by clicking here, and I get a pop-up. And I type in the pathway and file name, and boom, that whatever I type in there will be globally whitelisted. So that's all very cool. But notice the pathway must begin with %appdata% wildcards or %localappdata% wildcards. Once you've done that, you've used up all your wildcards and you can't use further wildcards. So this could entail a lot of typing on your part. Not so bad for global settings, but you might find yourself doing a lot of typing. So we've got a secondary method that might be easier for you. Now it's not global. It is client-based. It's fully compatible with this. You can use the global and the client-based one at the same time. They're fully compatible with each other. So let me go show you the client-based one. So I'm going to go back to the Automate Control Center. I'm going to go up to Bob's Burger Shacks, the client, and double-click to open Bob's Burger Shacks. Standard Automate client number 5, and guess what? There is a third wall tab. So this is the third screen of the 4 that I told you we're going to see. And this is third wall on a single client across all the locations of that client. Now the first screen that shows up is USB wall. This is not what we want. We're going to come back to that. But notice there's a link here that says App Data EXE Exceptions and Discovery. Now that's a nice word. Let's click on that page. And I'm going to go straight to what I call the magic button, Scan All. When you click here, we'll initiate a scan of every single computer in this entire client, every one of them. And we're going to look through the app data roaming and local app data folders up to 14 layers deep, looking for exe files. And we're going to bring them all back, deduplicate them, and deposit them under this section called Scan Results. Now, if I want to go beyond exe, remember I said there's 30 more file types. If I want to scan for them to help discover them, this is all a discovery process so far. Click here in the Scan Targets link, and look, there are the 30 additional file types that you can scan for. You can apply all of them, or none of them, or select one at a time and do a scan for those as well, and we'll find them in those same app data roaming and local app data folders. Okay, so once you've done your scan, then go to the scan results. And by the way, if computers are offline, this will never hit 100%. So don't worry about that. We'll only capture those that are online within 48 hours of when you hit the Scan All. So they could be updating over the next 48 hours. So if it doesn't hit 100%, you're still going to get virtually everything. I'm going to go to Scan Results, and this is what we found. So you have some options here. You can go through and say, choose them one at a time. Click, click, click. Want those 3 whitelisted. Or this could be a pretty long list, so you can go in there and peruse them and say, there's no ransomware in here, and you're going to check all of them. And they'll all get checked. Or instead, you can do a search using this search bar down here. I'm going to type in, let's type in OneDrive. Anything with OneDrive in the file name or pathway, I'm going to search for it. We found 17 matches and applied a check mark to all of them. Okay. Good deal, and sure enough, there are 17 check marks there. Trust me, you can count them later. But there are 17, and now all I have to do is hit Save, and we will transfer all these to the Current Exceptions page. I can do another search after that. I highly recommend you search for ConnectWise, because ConnectWise Manage and ConnectWise Control have components that are in the app data folder, so you'll want to make sure and whitelist those. Once you've done all your whitelisting and hit Save, click on Current Exceptions, and this shows you all the exceptions that are there. You have an option to add a manual exception here. So if I click here, then I'm going to get an extra line. I can just type in the pathway and file name of whatever I want to, again, just for this client, make an additional exception. So there's lots and lots of good power here. If you want some help, there is a nice help icon that shows you how to do all of what I just described. So powerful, powerful feature within Third Wall. Go back to here. That policy, with the exceptions, with the whitelisting, makes it really powerful. The next one down, disable terminal server services. This is all about stopping attacks on RDP by turning RDP off at the service level, terminal server services. This one's critically important because in a recent MSP survey, they found that 20% of all ransomware attacks came in via attacks on RDP. And the standard Windows configuration is vulnerable, so you want to do this if you're not using RDP to protect your environment. Okay, you can do it for workstations, servers, both, neither, whichever works again for your system. Next one down, clear Windows page file on reboot. The page file is virtual memory that Windows uses. It often contains passwords and other sensitive information that you probably don't want people accessing. It's sitting there fat, dumb, and ready to be stolen. So this will clear that on reboot. And finally, Windows recently stopped doing a regular scheduled registry backup. This will start that up again, so you always have a current registry backup on each computer. Okay, next page down is Data I/O security. This is all about protecting against data theft, not by hackers. You do that by keeping them out, and we have lots of policies to help keep hackers out. This is focused on internal people, employees and contractors who have access to proprietary information all the time and unfortunately are prone to steal it. A recent Verizon survey a couple of years ago now says that 54% of all people with access to confidential information will steal it at some point, and that's a scary number. So if you or your clients are concerned about that, this page is for you. First policy, let's stop people from writing to any optical media. No more DVDs or CDs, they're done. Now notice how this one's grayed out. You have to choose one or the other, mutually exclusive for obvious reasons. There are 4 different options for restricting USB storage devices. This one is the most restrictive. No more reading, no more writing to any USB storage devices. The mouse will work, but the data stick will not. Now, if that's too restrictive, go here and you can simply disable write to USB storage devices. Or instead, you can choose enable USB wall. So what is this? This is something that we created, and it is, well, when you first do it, it actually starts out pretty much identical to this one. No more reading or writing to any USB storage devices. They're done. But you, as the IT team, can register devices, and those that you register will work. Now, this registration process is for external hard drives and data sticks, and I can't say 100% of them will work. Almost all of them will work, but there are some out there we found that do not work for registration. But so make sure you do a little testing with whatever brand you're using to be sure that it actually can be registered by USB wall, but most of them can. So USB wall, when you do that, only those registered devices will work and nothing else will work. Recognize that we're not locking down the device. We're registering it, so only those devices work on these restricted computers. It's the computers we're restricting. If they want to use a device, a data stick they got from the trade show, not going to work. Found it on the street, not going to work. So you can only use registered devices on these computers that are in this location. So exactly how do you register a device? Well, let's go take a look. You actually register it on the on the client screen, not the location screen. So if I go back to where we were earlier, this was the client screen we were looking at earlier, and we were on app data whitelisting. Let's flip back using this link to go back to USB wall controls, and here is where you register USB devices. Okay. Down at the bottom left, there's a capture pens or devices button. Click here, and this will put you into the capture mode. All I need to do now is whatever device or devices I want to register on this computer where I'm running Automate. Security feature, you can only register devices on a computer running Automate. When you're in this mode, find an open USB port on this computer, plug it in. We will capture the serial number of the device. We'll modify it to make it unique, and then we will actually make it, we will encrypt it, put it in an encrypted file, and hide it on the device. And if somebody inserts a device into a computer that doesn't have one of those encrypted, hidden, registered files, then it's not going to work. So only those that have the file will work. Takes about 3 seconds to do a registration. Then when you're finished one, unplug it, plug in the next, unplug it, plug in the next, and you can do a whole bunch of devices in just a few minutes. Just simple as can be. So that's a really, really effective feature. Okay, so it's a partial lockdown. Very, very effective and highly useful for some environments. There's another really important advantage to this one, feature to this one, and that is the data view. So I'm going to go back to our primary control center. I'm going to right click wherever I want. I'm going to go to data views. And guess what? There is a third wall section of data views. Now there are 8 different data views. We'll take a look at those. But what I want right now is this USB wall file transfer audit. And this is going to give you a list for the last 60 days, every single every single file that has been written to a registered USB device, which are the only devices that work. Who did it, when they did it, what computer they did it from. You can then export this to Excel, because standard Automate feature here, export a data view to Excel, and you can see all 60 days worth of that in a sortable Excel spreadsheet. You can send that to your management team, your client, and they can find out if somebody has been copying files to their registered device that they should not be copying, and the appropriate actions will be taken after that. So very, very popular feature in Third Wall. For those of you who are MSPs, this is making a ton of revenue for our MSP clients. Now, what if you want the data view but not the restrictions? Well, we can accommodate that as well. So instead of USB wall, select USB watch. This is essentially no restrictions. We're not going to impose any restrictions, but we are going to capture data. So any file written to any USB storage device will capture the pathway and file name, and that will all show up on that data view. So again, a very popular feature with our clients. Okay, so that's all about USB devices. Let's move down to Common Cloud Storage. Another favorite way for people to steal data is to drag and drop to Google Drive or iDrive or Dropbox. This will stop that. So that's a powerful thing to, again, prevent data theft. This will be an evolving list, just so you know. The mechanism we use is pretty straightforward. We use host files. We just append the host file. Don't remove anything. We just append it with whatever you've selected here. It works pretty darn effectively, though. A word of caution: if you've got an antivirus with the ability to prevent the host file from being modified, then in order for this policy to work, you're going to have to go in to your antivirus, turn off that feature, apply this policy, and then go back and after the policy is applied and turn the feature back on your antivirus. We found this only in one so far, but I'm sure it's in others, and the one we found it in was WebRoot, so something to think about. The last one's a little different. You know, when people delete files, they're not really deleted, just the pointers are. The files are easy to recover by anybody that knows what they're doing. And you may not want that. We call them ghost files if you want to get rid of them. Then on a scheduled basis, this policy will do a 3-pass overwrite over all those deleted files, daily, weekly, or monthly. So you've got the ability to make sure that those are gone, okay? Pretty popular policy in certain circumstances, so you might want to choose that. Next page down is application security. The first one is straightforward. Uninstall blacklisted applications. If you select this one, you know that in Automate you can blacklist applications in Automate. And if Automate sees it, they'll send you a ticket. For MSI files, and only MSI files at this point, we'll take it one step further. We will automatically and silently uninstall those MSI files. They'll be gone. Next time the user goes to find them or launch them, won't be there. Again, that's useful for keeping unwanted software out. So that can be there to help you. Next one down, prevent public webmail access. This one's critically important. You're going to find that, well, it's a fact that that phishing on personal webmail is still the most common entry path for malware into small and medium businesses. How do you stop that? Well, don't let people get to their personal webmail. That's really the only answer, and that's what this does. Again, this will be an evolving list, and this is a classic not no-brainer. Your end users may start screaming at you when you do this if they're used to getting to their webmail, and so you go to your CEO, or if you're an MSP, your client CEO, and say, we'd like to do this. This is why. And the CEO says, that's a great idea. Let's do that. I don't want people on their personal webmail anyway. But you're not going to block me, the CEO, from getting to my Gmail, right? After all, I am the CEO. You know the CEO is going to say that. So you just say, no problem. Why? Because with ThirdWall, as you'll see when we get to the computer screen, it's easy to make an exception to any policy you want to on any computer you want to. That is a huge benefit of ThirdWall, especially about things like group policy. Next one down, same concept, prevent social media access. These two will be evolving lists, and they both still use that appending host file methodology. So same as the previous discussion on host files. This one, no more access to Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. You can use this one both for protection because there's a lot of redirects on links in those applications that you may not want your clients or your end users going to. So there's that. But then again, some people are going to need to get to that, and you're going to have to make sure and make exceptions, probably for the CEO again and the marketing team and maybe some others, so they can get the appropriate social media access. So there's the three stores, Windows, Google Play, and Apple App Store. You can block access to those if you'd like. So something to consider if you do that. Now, again, this just blocks computers from getting to those. It does not block mobile devices. We're not an MDM. The last two at the bottom, particularly important. Microsoft keeps putting out warnings about Office macros and OLE because malware has learned to piggyback for the past few years now on those two features in Windows documents or in Microsoft documents. And try to get past your antivirus, and because they do it in fileless fashion, and sometime they may succeed. So this is what Microsoft recommends: to disable Office macros from the internet, which will turn off Office macros in downloaded files and in files that are attachments to external domain emails. And same concept with OLE, external documents. So those are really important. Now, for macros in particular, we find that but how do I let some people use them? Well, here's the secret, and please don't tell your end users this. If you download one or it's on an attachment and macros are disabled, simply save the file, close it, reopen it, and now it's a local file, and the macros will work. So I know a lot of finance people need macros to work. So there's that, but again, use that, reveal that secret judiciously. You want everybody to know that. Next page down, protocol security. The first two are all about protecting using the Windows built-in firewall, the Defender firewall. If you want to use that for your workstations or your servers or both, click as appropriate. We'll turn it on, make sure it stays on, and by checking it every 5 minutes, which unfortunately is important for the Defender firewall. So that's good. If you also want to create a rules set to enforce with the firewall, then on this computer where you're running Automate, go into your Windows tools and create a WFW file with the appropriate rule set that you want to enforce. Save it, and then when you're done, click on Assign Config File. We'll bring up File Explorer. You simply double-click on the file you've created with the rules, and we'll start enforcing those rules across this entire location. Really effective as a primary or secondary firewall if you want to do some blocking that way, some rules enforcement. So a lot of our clients will do that. There is also a backdoor, interestingly enough, that if you create a certain a file with certain characteristics that are described in our documentation, then you can use the same mechanism for causing the ThirdWall to enforce that the Windows Defender firewall is off and stays off. So it's a nice, interesting backdoor that some of our clients requested. So you might want to check that out again in our documentation. So anyway, so that's the first two. Let me turn those off for now, and let's talk about from here down to here. These are various Windows protocols. I'm sure you recognize all of them, and they're all also recognized as vulnerable points. Hackers know about them. They love to attack them, and the best practice says to disable these protocols if you can. Oh, that's a pretty big caveat. What do you mean if you can? Well, classic example, SMBV1. You all remember WannaCry from a few years ago. Ransomware, how did it get around? On SMBV1. How do you stop it? By disabling SMBV1. What happens next? Your you're going to get some calls from end users saying, hey, how come I can no longer scan to my computer? You may recall that disabling SMBV1 did that to some particular scanners, particularly older ones and all-in-ones, that it disabled their scan to computer. So the point being not SMBV1, which is just one of these, but any of these could have unintended side effects because there's a lot of software, a lot of firmware out there that might be using some of these protocols. We do not know which ones will be impacted by disabling the protocols. So the point being, do some testing in your environment or your client's environments to see if there's any adverse side effects that you can't live with. And if not, then deploy these broadly. You will prevent some issues later on down the road. That's the whole point there. Lots for you to chew on there. All right, let's go to the last page, security logging and monitoring, and the most fun. So the first policy on this page is pretty simple. It's going to just capture all log on and log off events. Windows log file by default only captures log on events. We want to capture both in order to make this next policy much more effective, enable user logon reporting. So when you have this turned on, you can use this one. This takes these data, filters them, gets rid of all of the non-user logon types of events, with one exception, which I'll come to, and gets rid of all the redundancy. So that ugly, ugly Windows log file where it's hard to find stuff, all of a sudden we keep 60 days worth of clean user log on and log off data in an Automate table. And you can see that in either a report or in a data view. So let's go take a look at what you can see. We're going to go back to the Automate Control Center and we're going to go to Tools and Report Center. Wait for this to launch. There it comes. We're going to go to the report list. And if you alphabetize it by report title, sort that way, then towards the bottom you're going to see the TW third wall logon report. Client level report, so select the client that you want to do and view the report. Pretty straightforward, simple to do. And this is an example of our user logon report. Got a minimal amount of data. We don't have much in here on our system right now. But some things to notice. First of all, there's a logo. It's not going to be ours. It'll be yours as long as you use the report branding tool in Automate. So you're going to want to do that and get your logo on there. So second, you'll notice the date. The date is exactly 1 month and a day, looking backwards from yesterday, because we do some overnight processing to make this report run well. Today's data is not available in the report, although it is available in the data view. So this is a month and a day from yesterday. Why a month and a day? Because then another standard Automate feature, the scheduling wizard, comes into play. Have this thing set up as to run automatically every single month on the same day. You can have the PDF that's created emailed to you or to your client or to your management team, whoever, and then you can save it and it'll have a 1-day overlap with the PDF that you saved a month ago, giving you a full archive of all of the user log on and log off events that have happened over the course, since you started doing this. That's important because we only keep 60 days online in the table. You're going to want to archive these, which is required for many compliance purposes. And that's why we built it. But our clients have figured out a secondary use for this. And I'm going to actually, I've got another screenshot of some older data that's more robust, has more data to it, more interesting. So I'm going to pull that up. And you can see here another report. This is my partner Rob. Let's take a look at the data itself. It is pre-sorted. Can't change the sort order. First by domain and then by user. So this is my partner Rob. Then by computer and then by the start time of the event itself. So chronologic is the fourth sort level, not the first. Looking at the events that are here, there's logons and there's unlocks, and there's logons and there's unlocks. And wait a minute. These are all logon type events. An unlock is merely another type of logon, right? Unlocking your computer. Where are the log off type events? Well, we have captured them and we've paired them for you. So for instance, Rob logged on here. This is his log on time. This is the log on event. But then paired with it is the log off event here under the end column. So we did capture the log off. It just doesn't show up as a separate event. It shows up as a pair to the log on event. And by the way, he was logged on for 2 days, 11 hours and change. That is a long time to be working, right? Yeah, not so much. Look underneath that. This is an unlock here and a lock its paired lock event. There. And that was only 2 hours and 41 minutes and 26 seconds. And you'll notice this is a subset in time. So that time period is a subset of this time period because logged on, and this is the first time that his computer was unlocked during this log on, log off period. And look underneath that. There's another log on, log off event, and another one, and another one, and another one, another one. They're rather unlock, lock events. And each of those unlock, lock events is a subset of the log on, log off event at the top here. And that's true of every log on if it has unlock and locks beneath it. So that shows you that, hey, although he was logged on for 2 days, these were the only times that his computer was actually unlocked and he was available to work on. Which brings up a very interesting value proposition for you. If I go, see if I can get my cursor to work, go all the way back to here. You remember we set the password protected screensaver at 5 minutes of idle time? At the end of that, any computer in this location is going to lock. Why did I set 5 minutes? Well, let's say you've got some people working from home and they're not very good at employees. Their boss is worried, hey, is this person working or not? And sure enough, maybe they like to binge watch Netflix or something. So what happens 5 minutes after they walk away from the computer to go binge watch Netflix? It locks. Where is that going to show up? On this report. Do you think that person's boss might like to know that their computer was locked for hours every day over the last few weeks? Yeah, that could be really important for disciplinary purposes, for HR purposes, very objective data. So this has become an important tool for monitoring problem employees that are working from home in particular, but not just working from home. But that really is a driver. Again, if you're an MSP, this is a big, big moneymaker for our MSP clients because people want to know this information. All right, so that's enough of that. Oh, not quite enough. Let me go back here, and there is a extra option here, Type 3 logon failures. You may have noticed on that report that there were no logon failures listed at all. That's because logon failures are relegated to the data view. So before I talk about this Type 3 logon failures, let's go look at a data view. I'm going to go back to the control panel or the control center and go to clients, right click to data views. Again, you can do this at any level. It's a standard data view. Go to third wall, and we're going to go to the third wall user login audit. Okay, click here. And this is the full last 60 days of data that were recorded within whatever element you're looking at, in this case, all clients. So we do keep 60 days worth of data in the table. So this is it. You can sort it, you can filter it, you can find out what's going on in the evenings, whatever you want to do for investigative purposes. Now, I don't happen to have any today, any failed logon events, but if there were any failed logons, this is where they would show on this data view. They won't show on the report, just on this data view. So that's important if you were interested in finding a history of failed logons in the past 60 days. Or you could archive this as well and save it for longer if you so choose. But back to this option here, this checkbox, include Type 3. Now, Type 3 logon failures are network logon failures. If you don't check this, we'll only show you and capture and show you on that data view user logon failures. But if you want to see network logon failures, click on this. Now, why would you want to see network logon failures? And we don't capture any other network events, just logon failures. Why would you want to see that? Because down here, you notice there is logon Type 3 failed events. So we're going to come down to that, and we'll see when we get to this policy why this one's important. The next one down, enhanced security event logging, merely turns on 15 additional security event log types that are not turned on by default. But they are required by certain compliance regulations, including US HIPAA laws. So you may want to do this. We just store them locally. There's no reporting on them, but that's what's required to meet the compliance regulations that we're aware of. So you can go find a listing of those event logs that get turned on in our documentation. The next one down is my favorite policy, monitor for event log clearing. Why? Because first off, it's a no-brainer. Your end users will never know that this policy is turned on because all that we do is send you a ticket in Automate. When the event log is cleared, of course. Why? Because of ransomware and hackers. Virtually nothing clears the event log. Virtually nothing, except for bad actors. And in particular, Ransomware, when it buries itself, likes to clear the event log almost always so that you have fewer clues how to find it. And hackers like to do that, again, to avoid any clues. So would you like to get a ticket when one of those things happens? I certainly hope so. This is a really, really popular policy. No-brainer. You might as well. There is an extra box there to help prevent false alarms where we only monitor application system and security logs. So we do recommend that. The next one down, alert on XF if failed logon events. Again, a very popular policy looking for brute force logon attacks. And not just alerting you, that's a bit of a misnomer. But look down here. Taking actions to mitigate what's going on here as far as a threat. But let's come back to that. First of all, what is excessive? What constitutes excessive failed logon events? Well, you set that using this slider and these radio buttons. You pick what you want. Right now it said it's 10 user logon failures in a rolling hour. These are rolling time periods. So a rolling hour, and that's going to generate an alert ticket because if you look in the actions box, we've got ticket only selected. Okay, now I can change the threshold if I want to, and I can change the detection actions. Any and all of these options will send you a ticket. No worries, you will get a ticket. But for instance, you can have third wall launch your antivirus on this computer and at the same time send you a ticket. You can also have simultaneously third wall lock out this computer, which is going to kick everybody off that computer, disable all local accounts, and clear the domain credentials from the cache. So this computer is way harder to get into for that attacker. And finally, since you don't want this to spread, you can isolate that computer from everything else. We're going to disconnect that computer automatically right now from everything else except two things, your Automate server and your ConnectWise control server. Those two will still be connected, which means you can access this under attack computer using your remote access tools from ConnectWise and go and take care of the problem without ever leaving your desk. Very, very powerful. So when you do that, you got the ability at the end to reconnect it. And in fact, isolate and lockout are both reversible by you on that individual computer's third wall screen, which we'll show you shortly. Last option here is to isolate and shut down, again with the ticket. Same isolate feature as down here, but it's a radio button, so it's just a single choice. And after it isolates it, it will shut down that computer, unless, notice the asterisk, it's a server. We do not shut down servers. But if it's a workstation, we'll isolate it, shut it down. When it gets turned back on, it will still be isolated. You can fix it from your desk with your ConnectWise remote access tools, and then reverse the isolation again on that computer's third wall screen. We have one other option, which I alluded to earlier, the include logon type 3. If you do not check this, then this threshold of 10 logon failures is only going to look for user logon failures before it triggers the actions. But if you click here, then we will include not only user logon failures, but network logon failures as well to contribute to this threshold of 10 or whatever you chose. Now, that's a good thing. You're going to want to do that because brute force logon attacks can often come from network logon failures as well, or network logon sources. But that's why this is up here. Remember, we did this up here to capture on the data view and show you on the data view the type 3 logon failures. You may have thousands, if not tens of thousands of network logon failures in your system and not even know it. Typically, our clients have seen it from printers or other network devices trying to log on to network computers and failing because they have invalid creds. So you may have a ton of these cluttering up your environment. And if you do, and you select this, then you're going to get a bunch of false alarms. And that's not going to be fun at all. So you'll call us up on our support line and not be happy. So first things first, do this, clean up your environment, and then do this check mark here. Next, our most popular policy, monitor for ransomware attacks. This is the last ditch. We have many ways that we stop ransomware. We stop it from getting in the first place with many of our preventive policies. We give you a ticket if it clears the event log. We block it if it launches from the app data folder as an executable. And now the final layer of protection, monitor for ransomware attacks. When you turn this policy on, we're going to deploy 4 bait files, phishing bait, or also known as canary honeypots. And we're going to put an instant into every single end user's documents folder, usually my documents or documents. But even if it's redirected, we'll throw them into the redirected folder instead. And then we're going to put an instantaneous monitor on each of those files, looking for either content change or name change. Nothing and nobody should be changing the content or name of those files. And if they do, we're going to assume it's a ransomware attack and take the actions that you have selected. So again, very similar options to the prior policy. All of them will send you a ticket, but you can do ticket only, isolate and shut down, except for servers, of course, for the shutdown piece. Antivirus scan, isolate, and last is a little different, to disable the volume shadow service. So those shadow copies are further isolated from the attacking entity. This is the only one where you must select from your available automate alert templates one that you want us to use to notify you. We recommend you choose something that will catch somebody's attention, since this is a likely attack in progress. You'll probably want to spring into action. There's three more modifiers over here you can choose. You can hide those bait files. We don't hide them by default, which means that end users can see them and are more likely to play with them and trigger false alarms. So you might want to hide them. You might not. That's up to you. Even if you hide them, some people run with show hidden files selected on their file explorer. And that means they can see them, even if you've hidden them. And there, again, you might get some false alarms of people deleting them or changing them or whatever. So we highly, highly recommend that if you use this policy, you tell your end users that these bait files, these canary files, are out there, and please don't play with them. So how do your end users recognize these files? Well, the best way is by name. Every one of those has, as a default part of its file name, third wall. So they're quite obvious. So you should tell them that. Or better yet, go into our global settings. So remember global settings. Let's see if I can get there. Did I close it down? Nope. System dashboard. There it is. So in here, we've got a ransomware monitor settings page. Again, we've got some more we'll go over later, but for now, ransomware monitor. And look here, custom file name. So instead of having those bait files with the third wall name in it, why don't you put your company and maybe even do not touch? Whatever you want to do to try and make sure that people are comfortable with those files. Otherwise, they might see them and play with them or think they're a virus and delete them, something like that. So, but almost certainly they'll give you a call if they see them. So you can, they'll be much more comfortable with your company's name. Plus, you can bury them in a subfolder if you'd like. So type in the pathway of a subfolder. We'll create that on every computer and place the files in that subfolder of their primary documents folder. And additionally, and very importantly, you can create a static path that is not associated with the user, where we will add 4 additional bait files to the ones that are all in the user documents folder. We made this one look like a user, and we highly recommend that because that's what ransomware looks for. But we put a fake user's name, so this isn't a real user. But we'll create this pathway that you type in there. We'll put 4 more bait files and put our monitors on those as well. This gives you more protection for workstations, but is particularly important for servers because servers often don't have anybody logging on for long periods of time. And this will allow you to have bait files out there active even if nobody's logged on. So this is a very important protection for your servers. There are instructions here in the help icon that give you examples on how to fill in this page. So that's, again, makes this a really, really powerful feature within Third Wall. Okay, there's a couple more options here. There is alert on delete. If you do not select this and somebody or something deletes one of our bait files, we'll just recreate it literally within less than a second. And we call that the no harm, no foul rule. But if you click on this, then if one of our bait files gets deleted, then we'll take these actions right away. Why? Because some variants of ransomware do not actually encrypt the target. They create a copy, they encrypt the copy, and then they delete the original, trying to get around systems like ours. But once they delete it, we will take action and take care of the situation. So we will take all of these actions that you've selected, give you a ticket, and you can spring into action to go and figure out what's going on. One last option, static path only. If you want to have only monitored bait files in the static path and not in any of the user files. Click here and we will do that. If they were previously deployed bait files to users, we'll leave the files there, but we will disable the monitors and just use the static path as the trigger files. That has become useful for some of our clients who have certain configurations of OneDrive that the syncing of OneDrive can cause it to trigger our ransomware attacks reactions. Usually doesn't, but on some certain configurations of OneDrive, we see that, and the static path is particularly valuable for that. Static path only. Last policy, alert on unencrypted disk. If you select this, we're going to check internal drives for BitLocker encryption only. Nothing else, just BitLocker. We don't do other forms of encryption to check for that. And if we see one, then we will send you a ticket, and that's it. So please don't use this policy if you're not using BitLocker. But if you are, absolutely, it will be useful for you to make sure that you've got that. This is also a requirement for many compliance regulations, and you've got a couple different options to apply it to full disk encryption or not, which will also capture partial disk encryption, and apply only to laptop computers if you so desire. So you've got a couple options there. All right, I'm going to go back to the security overview and finally click the Save button down here in the bottom right. We're now deploying all these policies, which will hit within just a couple of minutes. And the monitors are going to get turned on. Those take a little longer, sometimes as long as 20 minutes. But you've now got a ton of protection out there in your environment. Notice that this one, Disable Windows 10 Keylogger, is light green. And this one up here, Disable Write to Optical Media, is also light green. What does light green mean? It means active with exceptions. So at least one computer in this location has an exception to those particular policies. Let's go take a look. I'm going to go back to my control center, and I'm going to double click on a computer. Virtual machines. Oops, I'm sorry, that was a location. That won't work. I'm going to go over here and double click on this particular workstation. Wait for it to load, and this will be a typical Automate computer screen. Waiting for it. It'll come eventually. Sometimes Automate's a bit slow. There it comes. Okay, typical Automate computer screen. You notice there's a plugin symbol in the top. It starts out grayed out while it's loading the plugins, and now it's live. So I'll click on that, and yep, there is a third wall screen. Click on the tile. And this is the fourth of those screens I wanted to show you. So this is third wall on a single computer. I'm going to scroll down right to the legend. Legend shows me 3 colors. I have orange for computer exception enabled. And sure enough, there are 2 of them that are orange. You have to read this carefully because it's a double negative. We are blocking the Disable Windows 10 Keylogger policy from applying to this particular computer. We don't apply policies at the computer level. We apply exceptions to the policies. We're blocking the policies. And same thing down here. We are blocking the Disable Write to Optical Media policy. So those both have exceptions applied. And they're not impacting this particular computer, even though they're turned on at the location level. Now, green on this screen means the corresponding location policy is active, but, and is impacting this computer right now. Yellow, conversely, means the policy is not active yet and is therefore not yet impacting this computer yet. You can preempt that by clicking on a yellow policy. Click here, and I can now apply an exception, clicking the OK button. And if later on I disable SMBV1 on this location screen, on the location where this computer is located, it will not impact this computer. What if it's already green? For instance, the Restrict Local Admin Tools policy is already on, and I'm not blocking it. It's not orange. Well, but I have a technician needs to get to regedit on site. So come here, and I'm going to click on this button again. And because it's green, I get 2 choices. I can make a permanent exception. No, that's just for the CEO's computers, right? Or I can create a temporary exception. Click here, and you get that slider up again. I'm going to give them 10 minutes to work on this computer. Click Save. We're now issuing an undo for this one computer on this one policy, and opening up a window for 10 minutes. Now, it might take about a minute to hit, or less usually, but it could take a minute. and it goes away. There's a window, the technician can do their work, and in 10 minutes we know the policy and the protections will reapply. So you've got a nice window to work on. Now, remember this one, restrict local admin tools. When we talked about it, the undo at the location level, there are some nuances to this. You might have to reboot the computer, particularly for run as admin and PowerShell. So remember that when you're using this particular exception, because it's just an undo on one computer on one policy. So that's turning them on. You can turn them off, turn off an exception, same way with the slider switch, and we'll get rid of that exception, just like that. Now, down in the bottom of the computer screen, there's a bunch of buttons. Now, we'll start with the bottom and go up. The bottom two are associated with our third wall admin password system, that rotating password that I showed you earlier. If you want to see what the password currently assigned is, click here, and there it is. I can copy it, I can reset it, so you've got some different ways to manage the password. You can also print out a table, by the way, of all the passwords that is described in our documentation, so look for it there. I'm going to go back and hide this. Above it are some utility buttons. Now, remember we had an app data scan to look for executables across an entire location, or no, excuse me, an entire client. This will do that same scan across this one computer if you want to supplement the list. This will take care of that by doing the scan on this one computer and sending the information back up to the Automate Control Center for that list. This one's a get TW logs, as we use that for troubleshooting. You'll need that when we're troubleshooting with you. These two, accept all and reset. These are designed to help you in particular to move a computer from one Automate location to another and make sure that you don't do some things you don't want to do with third wall. Remember, we apply third wall policies at the computer level with local settings, often in the registry. So let's say you move a computer from one location to another without doing any changes to it. Those settings are still going to be there. Put in the new location. The new location doesn't even know that it has those settings there because the policies probably don't match what you came from in the previous location. And you're going to have some restrictions that you're not going to understand. Hey, how come I can't do this? It's because it was turned on in the prior location as a policy. We introduced the restrictions there, and then you move the computer. So before you do that, come into here. Before you move that computer, come in here and click the Accept All button. I'm going to do that, and we're going to issue an undo for every single thing that's green, and we're going to make preemptive exceptions for everything else that's yellow. So I'm going to click Yes, do that, and everything is going to turn orange. So again, we did undos for all those that are already green, which gets rid of those local settings and restrictions for this one computer. Now, after I've given this a minute to take effect, I'm going to go and move that computer from location 1 to the new location. We'll call it location 2, and it won't have any third wall restrictions left on it. I'm going to then, when I finished it, click the reset button, and all of the orange is going to go away. And now it's going to reside in the new location. And any monitors that are active in the new location will see this as a new computer and will, within the next couple of minutes, apply the policies that are appropriate for the new location. So that's how this works. Above that, the emergency action button, some of our most popular features. Isolate and lockout you've already seen before as options for automatic application in two of our policies. These are the manual equivalents. Let's say somebody calls you up and says, "Oh, I've got a virus. What should I do?" Today, without third wall, if you weren't using third wall, and you should have it, but if you weren't using third wall, you would do one of two things. You would either tell the end user to turn off the computer so the virus doesn't spread, or to unplug that blue cable so the virus doesn't spread. And now, how are you going to fix that computer? Somebody's getting car keys and driving out there to on site because you can't communicate with anymore. Lots of wasted drive time for your technician, lots of wasted downtime for the computer. Not a great solution. So instead of doing that, come here on this computer's third wall screen, click Isolate. Remember what that does? It disconnects everything. No connectivity left at all except for your Automate server and your ConnectWise control or Screen Connect server. They're still connected, which means that you now, and you can see this is now isolated, and it says Restore Network. You now have this computer isolated. You can fix it with your ConnectWise remote access tools, and when you are done fixing it or exploring whatever needs to be done, come back here and click Restore Network. Click here, and we're going to reverse the process. and backwards it goes. And it's wait for it, it's reconnected. Never left your desk, fixed it, and everything's back to normal. So that's a very, very powerful feature. These three are all about protecting lost or stolen computers. Somebody left a computer at Starbucks, you can do a screen lock, and it will go out and lock the screen. Anybody with valid credentials can get back in. Lockout, as you may recall, is more severe. It's going to kick everybody off, disable all local accounts, won't work anymore, and then clear the domain credentials from the cache. Really hard to get into this computer. If you don't have a VPN and aren't connected to the domain, you can't. So really powerful. When you've finished fixing this computer, then this is a toggle. You can click it again, it will say restore accounts, and that's exactly what it will do. It will take those local accounts, re-enable them, and the computer will be back to normal. And finally, Annihilate, everybody's favorite. This is for a lost or stolen computer. It's gone and you need to destroy it. So click here. Now this button appropriately is protected. Only third wall admins can use this button for obvious reasons. So again, if you're not a third wall admin and you want to use this button, you have to make yourself one. So if I click Annihilate, I get two choices. Quick Annihilate is going to destroy, well, two things. First, it's going to delete the if I can say this right, delete all of the files from the documents folder. They're gone. And then it's going to destroy the operating system. It will be destroyed within a matter of seconds. So all this happens pretty quickly. That's all good. If you want to be more secure though, click here under Secure Annihilate, and this will do the same thing. Delete the documents folder, but before it destroys the operating system, it will do that 3-pass overwrite over all those files that you just deleted to make sure that nobody can, on the other end, yank out that hard drive from the stolen computer, plug it into a new computer, and recover those files, which obviously it could do. This will take care of that. And it takes longer, but it is more secure. If I click Annihilate now, there's still a safeguard. I have to enter my valid Automate username or it will not work. So yeah, there's no such thing as an accidental annihilation. Our clients used to worry about that, but we added this feature and there's no accidental annihilation. I'm going to click Cancel, as you might imagine. All right, so that is third wall on a single computer. Let's move back to third wall at the location level. This is where we just applied a whole bunch of policies, one at a time on one location. And that can be a little cumbersome, right? Lots of going through and applying policies. Is there an easier method? Yes, we call them profiles. So down here are third wall profile controls. So this is how that works. We recommend you start out by creating a brand new location and call it third wall sandbox. Don't put any computers in it. Leave it empty, always. And then you can go in there and, like I just did, turn on a whole bunch of policies. Play with it, turn on what you like. If you want to put a virtual machine for testing in there, fine, but don't put any production machines in there. And play with it, turn on policies. And when you get to a configuration that you like, with settings that you like, then come down here and save this current configuration as a profile. I'm going to do that now, and it's going to ask me for a name. Type in whatever name you want. I will type in the name Scott and click OK. It already exists. I'm just going to overwrite it and OK. Now the profile name Scott has all of these policies and their settings associated with it. Before I show you how to use it, let's go down here to this counterclockwise arrow next to our logo. This is an undo all from all computers on this location. So anything that's green, we're going to issue an undo. And I'm doing that to clean up this environment. You might want to use it to offboard a client or reset, something like that. But I want to just get rid of these so I can show you how to apply a profile. Yes, I want to get rid of these. No, I don't want to abort. I'm now issuing an undo for all those that are green, and they are gone. Now let's assume that instead of on third wall sandbox, I'm on a production location, and I want to apply that profile. To do that, go down here to the drop-down list, which is User Class Protected. You must be a third wall admin to do this, and I'm going to choose that profile name Scott. Wait for it to load, and there's a box to tell you what you can do, but basically everything is blue, and blue means pending changes by profile. So this is going to give you an opportunity now to save this profile, which means you're going to apply all of these policies and their settings to every computer in this location right now. You don't have to do them one policy at a time. Big time saver. But there's a better method if you prefer. Instead of clicking Save, come over here and click the Apply Profile button. If I click here, then I can apply this profile, all the policies and their settings, to this one location, to every location in this entire client, or to every location, every single client. Wow, can really save me a lot of time. I could create a baseline of no-brainers and apply them to this entire client, or maybe to all clients. I'll just apply it to this client for today. Click Save, and we're now applying all these in blue to this entire client, every single location. So they're back to being green. So that's a good thing, right? All good. So that being said, now that I've got policies applied to this location, can I do another profile on top of them? Yes, you can. Again, go down to your profile drop-down, select the one that you want. You can make as many as you want, by the way, and it will overlay right on top of this. So some important profile properties that are applied when you're overlaying them. First property is, if that policy already exists on a location where you're trying to overlay the profile, then the profile can change it. You'll actually get a chance to, we'll ask you, do you want us to change things or leave them as they were if there's a conflict in the settings themselves on policies that already exist? That's one. Two, if the policy doesn't exist, the yellow ones on this page, then the profile will turn them on, turn them green. Three, a profile will never ever undo anything that's green. So if the policy is already on, whether you applied it with a profile or individually, we don't care. The profile will not undo or remove anything that is green on a given location where you're applying an overlay. Just won't do it. That means you can do an overlay. Maybe you want to make a change in a setting and you create a profile with just one policy in the profile. Go and apply it to this location here, which has a whole bunch of green. It's not going to impact anything except for that one policy in the profile. Everything else will stay exactly the same. That allows you to come in and overlay, change things. Very, very useful way to treat profiles. The last thing about profiles, once you've applied them, you can go in and add or undo any policy you want to on any location where that profile was applied. And the profile won't care. Profiles do not come back and say, you can only be what the profile says. No, we do not enforce them that way. Profiles, think of them as a stamp. Here's a bunch of policies and their settings. Do them right now. I'm never going to check back with you to see if they're the same. So that's we really want you to be able to customize the locations even after you've applied a profile. And one of the things, what if you want to change a profile? Well, then what we recommend is that you load it up like I've done here. Go in and change things by going in and undoing or adding or changing settings to a profile, and then go back down here to the Save Current Configurations profile, save it, and then name it exactly the same thing, and those changes will be stored. But those changes will not be applied to anything that was using this profile before. Profiles do not work that way. They don't go back and change things where they were used before if you change the profile. So you would have to go back and reapply. And remember, if you removed any of these, and the profile will not undo them, but when you reapply the profile. So that's something that's very important, is again, profiles do not undo anything that's already there. Okay, so that's profiles. Very, very popular feature. Let me show you one more thing in our report center. I'm going to go back there to the report center because we have one other report. If I go to the report list, it is the client audit report. Before I do that, I have to go back and make a quick change at the computer screen. Remember I got rid of all those exceptions. I want to put a couple of them on because I want them to show up in the report. So go back here to the report center, and I'm going to go to the third wall client audit report. It is a client level report, so select the client again and view the report. This is what you're going to hand to your auditors, to your clients, to your management team, with your logo, not ours, showing you for the entire client, location by location, because every location can be customized, every policy that's currently on, every one of them, when it was turned on, and has been checked every 5 minutes since then. And in yellow, every exception that is active on any active policy. So that will give you a great thing to hand to your auditors or others to prove that you are protecting these computers. Great report. Our clients love it. Okay, let me go back to the control center. And, well, I'm going to ask the location. Let me go back to the control center. And actually, let me go back and show you our PowerPoint slide. So we've done the basic on-off. We've reviewed all the policies. We've been to the individual computer screen, and we've viewed profiles and all of our reports and some of our data views. So I'm going to go back and show you the rest of our data views next. Okay, go back here to the control center. And you get to data views, of course, by right-clicking at the appropriate level you want to. I'm going to right-click at all clients and go down to data views and go to third wall. We've seen one or two of them. We've seen the file transfer audit and the user login audit. Let's start at the top here. There's a computer audit log, and down here they don't ever fall in order. Third location audit log. Those are designed to show you at a glance. I haven't done a whole much with this look what I've chosen, but this shows you the for the last 60 days every single action that's been taken in third wall itself for computers. So I've only made a couple of exceptions, and the location audit log is the same thing for locations. Okay, so third wall audit logs are for you to have an audit trail of what people have done in third wall. There is a computer exception list that will show you all of the exceptions for that entity for anything that's there. So we've got a bunch of exceptions that we've made over time. That's a nice one. If you want to find out where the exceptions are, go to data views again, and third wall, there is enabled policies. So we've seen exceptions. What about policies? So you can do this again at any level, client level or location or all clients, and it'll show you. I've got actually 4 pages you can see of different policies that are turned on. It shows you the client, the location, what the policy is, and when it was turned on. So very useful for you as a data view. Keep going, right click, go to data views, third wall v2. There are which computers are isolated if you want to see if any are currently isolated. And last is the third wall license description. If you are in our month-to-month program for our licensing, this will give you a listing of all the policies, all of the computers rather, where we are charging you for protection. So that's again under our month-to-month, and I won't get into more licensing today, but that's useful if you want to check what we're charging you for as far as which computers. Okay, so that's all of our data views and reports. If I go back here, you can see got global settings is next. So global settings again are on the system dashboard. So we've been here before. We've seen the global EXE block exceptions, app data whitelisting. We've seen ransomware monitor settings, which we've got here. Let's go through the others in this list. There's monitor frequency. Really, you don't want to play with this page. It's something that we've got there that we use occasionally to help our clients with some troubleshooting, but basically it changes our monitor frequency. Alert communications. These two in particular are really important. You can globally change the default template, alert template of how we notify you. The default for everything is create and automate ticket. That's the default that we use, okay? Except for that one policy, monitor for ransomware attacks, which, as you recall, you had to select a template. So that one is exclusive for this. It has its own selection process. But this will globally change it if you want us to change how we notify you. So you can choose from the drop-down list and see whatever it is, however you want to do it. And then you can also change the alert category, again, for all of our policies, except for the monitor for ransomware attacks. That one's governed by its own template, so you can't do it with that. But here you can choose the category. A lot of our clients will do that to help map third wall tickets to a particular ticket board. So these are very useful for that. Okay. While I'm on tickets with this, I'm going to come back to the global screen. While I'm on tickets, it makes sense to go back here to the control center. And I'm going to go from the client screen over to the groups screen. We leverage Automate Groups for our monitors and tickets. You don't assign policies that way, but we do leverage it. So if I go to groups, you can expand this out a little bit. There is a third wall section. I can expand that out. And then there are the 7 subcategories. If I expand one of those out, and there are policies. So let's say I want to be notified of issues in a different way for one of these policies. So I can double click on the policy itself, open up the monitor screen essentially. And I'm going to go to computers and to remote monitors. ThirdWall uses remote monitors that are right there on the computers themselves, so they're always active even if the computer is offline. And there is that policy. I'm going to highlight it, and look, I can change the report category. I can change the template for this one policy. It'll be global across all computers for this one policy, but you can get granular. This allows you to map, for instance, the report category into a particular Automate ticket board for a given policy within ThirdWall. So that can be very useful if you'd like to use that. Okay, go back to here, and I'm going to go back to the system dashboard. So there's a couple of screens. We've seen these two. Let's go to isolate settings. Isolate, really powerful feature. People love it. A couple of nice things here. One is when a computer gets isolated, you can customize the message that they receive as a pop-up on their screen. Hey, you've been isolated. You can say whatever you want. And if you have, by the way, a logo stored within the Automate report system, we'll go in and grab that logo and throw it on the message as well, so you can get a little bit of branding. Same thing, you can change the message to whatever you want once the network access is restored. You can have a separate pop-up message show up. Okay. Down here, isolate auto restore, an interesting feature. In very, very, very rare circumstances, just once or twice over the last 7 years, we've had clients whose computers got isolated by ThirdWall, but for some reason that shouldn't have happened, their Automate server also got disconnected, and they couldn't access the computer via the Automate server, which is, again, highly, highly unusual. But if that happens, you might have a problem. We do have a way to manually reverse the isolation. It requires a command prompt. So if you happen to have disabled the command prompt on that computer, now you've got a real problem. No command prompt, no access. This thing has issues, and you're not going to be happy with that. So this is a little bit of a safety valve. If you put a time in here, I'm going to put in 120 minutes, 2 hours, then that will come into play if under the following conditions. The computer's isolated, and it knows it's isolated because this setting is going to be locally on that computer, so it's isolated. And it says, oh, I cannot talk to the Automate server. If those two conditions exist, the timer starts, 120-minute timer. And at the end of that timer, if access to Automate or isolate removal hasn't happened, then this computer at the end of that time period will automatically remove isolation, because that's the only way you're going to get removed. Again, once or twice in 7 years, not a big deal, but we wanted to give you a safety valve in case that happened to you and got you in a bit of a pickle. Okay, so that's the isolate settings. There's some utilities. Mostly you're not going to play with these at all. I would recommend that you go in and check that both of these boxes are checked. That is pretty important. And then there's some here that we could use for you to help with some troubleshooting, so you aren't going to play with much else. Encryption, one single button. You probably have this already checked, but if you don't, please check this box. Okay, we use FIPS encryption on a couple of different things with our own data, not your data, and we need to make sure that that's encrypted with using current encryption processes. So, and then there's last, AV scan override. Remember, we had a couple of our policies that would kick off your antivirus scan, both the monitor for ransomware attacks and alert on excess of logon failures. Well, the reason we know what to do, which antivirus to kick off, is because when you set up Automate, mapped your antivirus or the various ones into it, and we know what they are. So, but there are a couple that don't map within Automate. If you find that's the case, you can use the override here to add your antivirus parameters, and that will you can see everything that's available down here. We have a test going on down here, and then on the Automate location screen, you can see there are some override options. You can choose one for a given location that you have put in globally as an option globally. So again, very limited use, but when you need it, that's an important one. So back on the, let me see if I can get to the screen, okay. On the dashboard, that's all 8 of our screens there. And again, these are all locked down. Only ThirdWall admin people can use this. So that's good. All right, back to the PowerPoint. We've covered a lot of ground. Tickets, I've talked about already. I kind of diverted to go talk about tickets and how you can map them out. But we do tickets for several reasons, and you've seen them all. One of them is the autofix. If we have to autofix something, we'll send you a ticket. One of them is if we fail to apply a policy. I talked about that with if you've disabled the built-in local admin and then you try and change the name, we'll send you a ticket saying, tried, couldn't do it. You get a ticket there. Again, all standard Automate tickets that you can map through. And then some of our policies are designed to send tickets. For instance, the monitor for ransomware attacks, it's going to send you a ticket because there's an attack going on. So we have a few policies like that that are good and important. Last thing to talk about is permissions. We talked a little bit about third wall admin and how certain things are reserved for third wall admins. And those are the global settings on the, let me go back and show you. The global settings on the dashboard are all third wall admin only. On the location screen, the undo all link and the profile drop down are both third wall admins only. And on the computer screen, annihilate is third wall admins only. Oh, and something I forgot to mention that's important, annihilate button. When you click the annihilate button, it issues an automate command. Now, normally automate commands last for 48 hours and then they expire and they're dead. But we engineered the annihilate button to be different because the computer's stolen, it may be offline for days, weeks, months. As soon as it comes online, our annihilate button is active still. It doesn't die after 48 hours. It stays and stays and stays until one of two things happens. It hits, the computer comes back online and we destroy the computer. Or alternatively, you go in and delete the command. So it's a command, you can go into that computer screen and delete the command and it will go away and not come back. Only two ways to get rid of an annihilate command. So it lasts for a long time. Okay, we have one other permission level. It's called third wall restricted. So there are actually three levels of permissions. There's third wall default, which is not labeled anything. It's just what's out of the box, which is everything I showed you today, except for those things reserved for third wall admins. Third wall restricted is third wall default minus everything on the location screen. They can go through and see everything, but everything will be grayed out. They cannot change anything at the location level. So for junior techs, if you don't want them to be changing policies, that's how that works. And that is permissions. So we've gone through a ton of stuff with third wall. We've talked about how to use it, documentation, all the policies, how you make exceptions and emergency action buttons on the computer, how to use profiles, which make sure you know how to do that. Those are powerful, but you have to make sure to understand them. And if you don't, please reach out to us. Reports and data views, a lot of global settings, how tickets work in third wall and permissions. So I hope that was helpful for you so you can then jump in and use third wall with confidence. And again, remember our documentation. That instructions document will be absolute gold for you so that you can then understand in quite a bit of depth and detail how to use third wall and what our features do. Please contact us if you have questions, info@third-wall.com, or again, if you've got technical questions, you can go to contact us and go to our support, send us a ticket. Thanks very much for taking some time today. I hope this was useful. And again, thank you for using third wall. We hope you find it to be an invaluable tool in securing your environment.